you can narratively be anything you want in Daggerheart in some ways.
Yeah.
And transformations are the opportunity for us to mechanize something you might just narratively choose. A ghost comes to mind, right? Or even a vampire. You could just be like, I'm playing a vampire warrior who is da-da-da-da-da. And it's fine. You can just do that. And we watched a lot of people do that. And we were like, what if we made it mechanized? What if we gave them something? But I think one of the challenges is how do we give them something cool like that without them suddenly becoming the most powerful person in the party?
For real. Yeah. I mean, when we were wrapping up core, folks started to get excited about vampires and things like that as a class. And I was adamant that they not be a class under any circumstances. I was like, that is not how Daggerheart approaches these things. It is much closer to heritage. Vampire isn't something that you do. It's not your career. It's your bard, wizard. I think in certain media, sometimes vampire characters, they just do murder, but they're if you think of the vampire Lestat, he does pop star or rock star. Yeah, he would be a bard. And so
even if you said to create a game that was specifically just about vampires, you would have to diverge a great deal to make it playable and fun and interesting because that can't be your whole personality as vampire.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fun.
You listened to me rant about that as we figured it out, and they didn't exist. They were not called transformations for a bit. We had to figure out how they worked. But
alters for a little bit. They were
the early version of transformations. For the briefest moment, we were like, what if we can print them on clear cards and then you put them over your ancestry card?
Yeah.
And then,
do a John D. Clare move.
Got tossed out pretty quick.
But there's certainly a balance there, like you were mentioning right now. Mechanically, you get an advantage, but what's the disadvantage?
Yeah.
And that's all been built into basically all of it.
Yeah, and it's, it is a first for Daggerheart in that most options you take don't have some kind of disadvantage built into them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was important to us that it was something you were opting into.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that was necessary, but if you're okay, because you also have to be aware as the player of those downsides and play into them, and because the GM can't be the one to remind you every time.
Yeah.
So one of the rules that we have is you're responsible for keeping track of this. That's the responsibility, that's the burden you take on as a player. It's you have to track both the good and the bad of this.
Can't keep doing work for
Right, and if that is not interesting to you, then the concept of being a vampire, the vampire itself, there are so many cool things about being a vampire, and also there are some big downsides. Mm-hmm. And so we have to lean into that concept wholly if we're gonna, if you're gonna put it on your character. That's one of the requirements. So we're asking them to opt into.
I really appreciate that throughout Hope and Fear, with everything we introduced, you really kept the team focused on not putting everything on the GM and putting the decisions that players make back on them in terms of management, so that everybody at the table is managing the fun, but so that the GM isn't just getting the experience for the expansion for the GM isn't an expansion of work. Yeah. It's an expansion of options. Mm-hmm. You really kept us all on that, because I think there were versions that were more or less successful as we got in. And I think also on transformations, the amount of badness scales based on the goodness of the individual transformation rather than off of transformations as a whole.
Yeah. And
also, the way that any individual player views something as being particularly good or particularly bad can vary quite a lot.
The demigod is a good case for this, in the sense of the bad weirdly is feeding into your massive ego. If you're if you like demigod characters, you're even when I screw up, I have such an effect on the game.
Yeah.
There's something I kind of like about that. So that, but also the fun of playing a werewolf. This is the bad. I explode and just destroy everything around me in a fit of rage. You can still weaponize that.
You can. Mm-hmm.
But that's every story is about the downsides of vampirism, the downsides of being a werewolf.
Yeah. It's more because drama is about the ups and the downs, right? That's the thing that makes stories engaging for me. And so they're kind of little stories in and of themselves,
Yeah.
right? Like what is it when you haven't fed as a vampire for an amount of time and you've used your abilities? Well, you start to not be able to function, right? I think of also the ghost is one where you're really having to opt into a big piece of it because you have unfinished business, and it's like you have to work with your GM to figure out like what is that, and when you fulfill that, you're gone.
It's much more narrative.
It's way more narrative.
What other parts of the negative you were mentioning, Rowan, that are an advantage, like that are easy for maybe someone to think like, oh, well, then this thing has to happen, like?
Well, I've found since we released Daggerheart, different people will come up to me and ask questions because they experience certain classes as being more or less powerful based on the way that they like to play.
Yeah.
Like if you like tanky characters, kind of your jack of all trades, master of none, maybe like a wizard with a grimoire, might not be what you experience as powerful.
Right.
You might be looking for a brawler or guardian. But I love to, when I play, I love to be able to move all over the place.
Yeah.
And so power for me, not on a game designer level, but on like a personal taste level, I'm looking to play characters where I'm very nimble, where I have a lot of tricks that I can pull out. And so we were trying to examine both the type of person that might choose these transformations and appeal to them mechanically, and also tailor the mechanics to the type of story that you're telling with each individual one. So like the reanimated, I love.
Yeah.
I love a undead character, and I think some people might think corpse isn't worth it because you have to have access to undead material to be able to heal yourself. Like they might think that that's going to be too limiting, and I'm like, give it to me. That's delicious.
Oh, the fact that you have to have like a deceased
a
creature of
deceased
some-
creature.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's kind of an ephemeral idea. Like that's not just math on a card, but you know, that might not be appealing to certain characters. Or like a shapeshifter, you only ever get one of the ancestry features. That's distinctly less power on any given moment on your card, but also you can just be any ancestry.
But yeah, but like, how do you you can't quantify adaptableness, and you know, I love character build videos, and I probably will make a bunch about Daggerheart at some point, just for my own entertainment, because I do want to know what is the highest DPS, like where they're like the assassin or the most tanky character. I do like that stuff. However, this is being run by a game master.
Yeah.
So as much as you can make the most optimal build, blah 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 blah, you are the thing you're hitting is not a wall. It's a human being who is a game master who can make the environment still challenging for you. Yeah. So like if you're doing this for narrative reasons or for the fun mechanically, I'm all for it. I do it myself. I love optimization. I don't love the success of optimization always. Then things get boring for me. I love to fail so much. I love failure, and that's why I really like these transformations. To your point, I love like, I'm raging. I'm going to hurt my own party.
Yeah.
If you don't throw me into this room
yeah.
and let me kill everything
Get
in
me
it.
contained, lock me in the room.
Yeah, lock me in the room.
Well, I think even with transformations raise this question during Hope and Fear, but lots of things in Daggerheart raise this question when we engage with them, which is ephemeral has a lot of overlap with Spectre of the Dark, which is a tier 4 midnight card. We have a lot of discussions about whether similar powers through different avenues have to be equal. And so, like, if one character gets flight through their class, does it have to be more or less or equally powerful to a character who gets it through their ancestry? And the Ghost was a really good example of essentially something that attaches to your heritage being narratively similar to something that you get through a domain.
Yeah.
And I don't think things need to be created equal just because they're similar.
Yeah.
We have the really great gift of always returning to the narrative, which the experience of being a ghost, having died, and then being brought back to the land of the living because you have something that you can't let go. Yeah, you probably shouldn't be getting the ability to pass through walls in the same way as a tier 4 character with access to the midnight domain who gets to go through walls because they have sick, nasty magic at their disposal. So I think luckily the narrative really drives those decisions, but it was a big part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you're resistant to physical damage, take double magic damage, and can mark 2 stress to momentarily pass through a solid object.
Suck it.
So there's like
I love that.
a lot of give and take there, right? Like I can do the thing, but it stresses me out. I can't get hit by swords as easily, but I can be attacked by magic
damage
users
is real
because
rough.
that's the way that, like, especially in classic like ghost form, like magic is what, you know, we're talking about like the Exorcist even, right, or whatever. Like magic is the thing that can be used against them. So it was about really trying to like encapsulate the archetype in the smallest form factor we could.
Yeah. I'm so grateful. Transformations were like, I told you, like all the way back in core, I was like, I will die on this hill. We cannot make vampires a class. That is not how Daggerheart approaches things. And luckily you were like, yeah, okay.
I was like, let's experiment.
And
That's
very
totally
supportive.
fine.
And as soon as Rob
I wasn't
got in
even
with
thinking
us,
about vampires. I was like off on other things. And
I
you
was
were
thinking
like,
about vampires.
But it is a tendency. I've gone down that road myself. I've
Yeah.
made a monster class.
yeah.
I say that, and I don't necessarily mean to be prescriptive for like the world at large. I think in other games, a vampire class is perfectly viable. Like, but in this game, the way we've decided to approach making a person is very specific, and I think I'm very grateful to Rob and Spencer for being in the trenches in my excitement on transformations, because I came in like so ready, and everyone got their hands in the pie, and it ended up being everything that I wanted and more when I was imagining a vampire.
You had a really clear vision for what you wanted out of it, and that was really helpful. Sometimes we come in with certain clear visions about things, and we're like, hold on, everybody just give me 5 minutes, and I'm gonna cook on it, right? And then we bring it back to the team, and that was one of the moments where you were like, I got this, just give me a minute, I'm gonna bring you a pitch. And it was great.
So what's the full list right now?
Yeah. So we have Demigod, Ghost, Reanimated, Shapeshifter, Vampire, and Werewolf.
And to your point, when it comes to like the shapeshifter, like you and I both said that, yeah, you only get one trait, but you can just like, what is my vibe today?
Yeah.
Do I want to be a little bit of a ribbit and take one of these traits, my favorite trait? Like you're so adaptable to situations. Also, like the social implications of being able to walk into any environment and belong is extremely different.
One of the things that was really important to us in introducing transformations as well was simply introducing the tech. Every time we put something new into Daggerheart, we're introducing not only the thing that people can play, but now the concept by which it exists, right? And so like transformations are new tech, and we're really excited to also see what people make with transformations. We announced that that Hope and Fear is going to be in the SRD, so you can now take those transformations and the concept of transformations and now make your own transformations out of them. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what people think about that we haven't even considered yet.
In particular, I think transformations, or at least I hope transformations, are an excellent tool for homebrewers who are making things customized for the campaign that they're playing with their friends, because you can take a big swing on a transformation for your players, for your game, that is not necessarily viable for a book for everyone, but is so good for the story that you're telling.
It's so great for like in the campaign changes too. That's what I really like about like, this thing happened and now I'm like this.
Yeah.
Like mandatory in a way. Like, yeah, you could start out this way, but once things progress and you suddenly are a werewolf or a vampire, like, okay, this thing happened, this memory you have of your character, something transpired, something went down, and that's what I kind of like about it. And certainly you can always tie your abilities of class and subclass to stuff like that, but like, this is acute. This is like a really good narrative-driven moment to gain game mechanics, both positive and negative.
We were just talking the other day about building a character that is a vampire, has a vampire transformation, and what it would mean to then treat all of your domain cards as if they are powers gained from your vampirism rather than from going to school or your innate ability that you were born with, if you're a sorcerer, whatever it may be, like what does it mean to treat domain cards like something that comes with that? And that was a really interesting thought experiment for us, and I think is kind of a testament to how every piece of tech we introduce is then part of a larger whole that we can infinitely play with. Sometimes those experiments are not good. They don't ultimately end up, but even the designs that failed that are on the cutting room floor were really helpful to get the books where they are now.
There's a ton of ancestries in here, and also gnomes. I love that, and gnome.
Yeah, and the gnome.
And I love the Earthkin,
Aetheris
Airkin.
and gnome. I feel like it's the
And
kins
gnome.
of Aetheris and gnome.
Well,
And I love a gnome, and I love a little guy. I love a teleporter too. So it's like hidden all the
Gnomes were
little.
tricky.
yeah, gnomes are tricky.
Gnomes are hard.
We knew that we wanted to put in stuff that people were begging for.
Yeah.
And all 6 were things that people asked for. And so we were like, okay, here's the next suite of ancestries, right?
Yeah, anything that is human but tall, human but short, human but with pointy ears is always just brutal.
Especially
It's just,
we don't
it's
do
just
culture.
brutal.
We try to do the least amount of culture for ancestries that we can, because in particular that comes from your community. And your ancestry is how you look.
We have very specific rules about how we approach ancestries. Like, for example, dwarves can put gems in their skin. And that is something that they can do because of how their bodies are. So we talk about that. But we don't say that, like, and they do it because they believe that this, and this. Absolutely not. That's not for an ancestry. That's for a community or an individual. And so gnomes, like, describing them and figuring it out was gnarly. And once we got flicker step, delicious.
Yeah.
I was so excited,
really fun.
especially because my favorite piece of lore, which came really, really late in the book for Ancestries, was that, like, little kid gnomes, like, don't know how to control their flicker step yet. So sometimes they'll just, like, beep, and their parents then have to deal with that. That's not culture. We don't tell people what they do about it or how they feel about it, but it's like, if your kid just zaps out of existence and appears across the room, you have to contend with that.
Where did Danny go? Danny!
I love that.
Yeah, I actually, weirdly enough, like, looking at Emberkin, I always had this story for a character that their village gets burned down and they're the sole survivor in the ash as a child. And so when, like, looking at the Emberkin, and it can seem like extremely powerful to be completely immune to fire damage and magical fire, but, like, God, what a hook to be. That notion of, like, I can have, like, a great origin story because of this one thing. Because the game master can always work around whatever damage immunity you have. That doesn't matter as much as you think it does. On the character sheet it does, but, like, it immediately made me think of, like, story hooks.
If you have immunity from fire, it doesn't mean everybody that you love that's standing next to you does. Like, I think that's a toy.
Yeah.
We also don't have fire damage in this game.
Yeah.
Like you might in other traditional D20 fantasy systems. And so that in particular is telling you something about the narrative.
Yeah.
And so, the if you opt into that, then it's the GM and the table's job to go, like, okay, what cool situations can we leverage to showcase this awesome thing about you? Like, of course I'm going to make, as a GM, if I have an Emberkin, of course I'm going to make a burning building that nobody else can run into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I want them to run into.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's a good moment.
And in a similar way, like, if there is a moment where the players are fighting this thing and they're like, if we put up a wall of fire here, you can still walk through it.
Yeah.
Right? That lets us showcase a really cool thing about that character that is unique to them and lets us see their moment on screen.
I think
that's really fun.
Especially when you think of, like, the X-Men or something like that. This is my moment. I was born for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why we ultimately chose to bring the wings back for Aetheris.
Yes.
People were very torn about the wings.
Care about flying.
We brought back the wings.
Care about flying a lot.
And even though you could get wings from being a seraph, it was that conversation I was talking about earlier. Like, just because you can get it from somewhere else doesn't mean you shouldn't necessarily get it here, or it needs to be the same. And telling this story of an Aetheris and what it means for a player to choose that ancestry, and be also its relationship with Infernus and all of that, we're like, give them wings. But we were working on that for so long, going back and forth, that the Aetheris art, the wings are on an entirely different layer, because we needed to be able to say no.
Toggle in.
Oh, yeah.
Wings yes or wings no until the very end.
Yeah.
Which, thank goodness for our brilliant artists.
Yeah. That was a really great job.
Because it's wild developing things in real time while art is being made.
What was important to capture with the new communities that people are finding? I love that all these are like continuous layers of, when you're building a character, you get, like, I love Slyborn.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I love like a character that comes from that environment and then getting a mechanical boost for making that choice.
Yeah.
Is one of my favorite things. But like, you've got a bunch of new communities. What was important to capture this time around that maybe you couldn't fit into the core?
One, I love communities. I think people think that the rich design space in Daggerheart are the Ancestries. And while I think there is richness to be had there, I think communities are richer soil. Because they're more nimble, and you don't hit a point where you're just like infinitely iterating on like types of animals, or like breaking humans up into increasingly granular ways.
I was really excited about the fact that we could continue to hone in on both conceptual and location-based communities, because there's overlap there, right? And you're like, well, I could totally be a Slyborn from the desert or from a forest. That doesn't make me, but it's what community am I resonating with? And so the opportunity to be able to go even further in those directions was really fun. I mean, we have something like Duneborn, which is very desert-based, but then you also have something like Reborn, which is very conceptual. And so to allow people to lean into the thing that makes them most interested in their character and let everything else be flavor, it was the goal from the beginning, but we really got to see it here. Like, we got to also scope down more. So like Frostborn is more specific, right?
Yes.
Duneborn is more specific.
There was a lot of conversation about if Frostborn is different enough from Ridgeborn. And I suppose that's up for individuals to decide. But Hearthborn was your baby.
Yeah, I loved Hearthborn.
What was the concept for Hearthborn?
Well, Hearthborn was like, people wanted to be from a small village and be, just be a little guy. In core, it was really crucial that we had the spread that we did, because we wanted people to come from adventure, right? You are heroes, you're coming to a heroic role-playing game. And so when we had to make cuts to everything, the 9 that are there, the 9 that made the cut. But it was really nice to be able to include something like Hearthborn and Duneborn and Frostborn in this expansion, so that people can niche down even further. And Hearthborn is just about being from a small village. And it's a very classic story. And so like...
the opening of Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah, opening of Beauty and the Beast. And so like a lot of these things in this book, they are an extension of what's in core. And if you like what's in there and you want more, you have the chance to dive deeper. And again, like, you could totally be, I could choose that I'm from a small village in the mountains and be Ridgeborn, right? So because we separate those concepts, you could totally still make that in core. But in here, if you're from a small village and you decide that's the thing that is like,
it's what's the highlight? What's
feature,
the thing you want to build from?
Now it mechanically matters.
My 2 that I was most excited about were Freeborn, which means you're part of a collective that once lived under tyrannical rule. Because, I mean, it's a little edgier than the communities that we released in core.
It's a lot more nuanced.
It's an opt-in, and I think it's a really strong narrative choice. It's really fertile ground to build from, but also not only you, but everyone at your table has to opt into that community. And so it was a real joy to work on that with all of our culture consultants and go back and forth on what that mechanic could be. The feature on Freeborn from moment one was always Unbound. which is really interesting. A lot of the times the features change, but we had the narrative goal and then tweaked the mechanics around it. And then my other favorite one was Reborn, which breaks every rule of
Which is
community.
great. Yeah, I love the Reborn quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, we broke our rules, which I hope shows people how to do that, to break the rules. Not that I suppose anybody.
But it's
needs
very
to
real.
change.
I mean, it's a found family community. I mean, that's why I like about that so much.
Found family was also always the mechanic for Reborn. It always had that name. The mechanics changed a little bit, but that's what it always was. I think the important thing about Reborn that we don't usually do with communities, but we did in this, where we talk to the reader about what it means to choose a Reborn, because I think that the Reborn is a really exciting choice, but it can also lead to the like character that doesn't care about anyone else loner, which is why the feature is Found Family. It essentially, the feature is gating the behavior of like, I'm reborn and I'm estranged from everyone and I'm on my own. The feature points the player back to, these are the people that I love. And I think that you have to know why you're choosing it, but also I think you can have the Reborn storyline without choosing that community as well. It's like the constant thing that we're talking about. You could be Hearthborn from the mountains. You could be, Orderborn from the same village as a Hearthborn. But I think choosing a Reborn, I think Reborn community is very inspiring for people, and I think choosing it on a mechanical level and choosing it on a narrative level are two very different stories in play at the table. And so we took a minute to like talk to players, my reader.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people have left their community in some way when they're playing Daggerheart. They've left the village they used to be in, or the city that they grew up in, or any number of backstory things that made them move on from the community that they once were a part of. But I think that the idea is that is what that is forming the basis of who you are. Is you're like, no, I'm done with this. I'm leaving this, or I can't remember it, right? I've lost the ability to pull that knowledge.
It was made for Laudna.
It's made for Laudna.
Lots of adversaries, lots of player options, so many magical and regular weapons.
Yeah.
I don't think people fully understand this about Daggerheart. There's a weapon for you. If you've got the weirdest weapon you always wanted to have, I don't know in recent history that I've seen a game system that has this many weapons. It's ridiculous because it's like, I love double sword. I love double-bladed swords.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Most ineffective weapon in history. It's never even existed. It's a non-functional thing. It's right up there with flails. They suck. But it's wild how many different. There's a ton in this, right?
Yeah, there's even more.
And consumables.
Yeah, lots of
ridiculous amount.
The same amount of items and consumables.
If that's
from
your
core.
whole vibe,
Yeah.
if you are just a consumable person,
There's an entire new. There's double the amount now.
if you
that
just
was
love
in
lots of
core,
potions and
so.
grenades that do things,
Yeah.
this is a good book for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the armor as well. We were able to find some spaces in between some of the armor that already existed to fill some of those gaps and give people the opportunity to take bigger swings.
Very good daydream material as a player when you look at them I'd like to get this one day.
I'm really
It's a
excited
little bit of a
about
shopping catalog for
exactly
for
what it
playing
is.
games.
the
You're
Sears catalog.
one day I'm going to buy myself something real
I'm gonna
nice.
get I'm gonna get their arcane rifle or a splinter shaft bow or whatever. Yeah,
And they all have they're all of consequence. It's not like scattershot. Here's a whole bunch of art and everything does a D blah 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 blah. No, they all have a different effect to the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's consequence.
Yeah.
Behind every item.
I'm really excited about the Enchanted Shillelagh.
Oh yeah.
I saw the Enchanted Shillelagh.
Rob was working on the weapons, and I texted him because I was thinking about the Brawler, and I had been working with a team on the art for the Juggernaut. And I was like, we gotta have it. We have to have a shillelagh of some kind.
Yeah.
I need this to appear in the book, and this is what he gave me, and I really appreciate it.
There are, I mean, there's really, what I also like it, it's not always tied to a physicality. Like when you look at some of the firearms, they're tied towards knowledge. Or another example is the armbands.
Yeah.
That you can use to attack a foe. You're using this as a weapon, but it's not based off of agility or strength. This is about your knowledge of this item, and that is what makes you powerful, which is so much more fun.
I love knowledge weapons. I also feel like knowledge weapons or presence weapons or they communicate something really important about Daggerheart, which
It makes really fun narrative.
Yeah, there's not one way to stab a foe.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think too, like
again, this goes back to why I like the Brawler so much and be able to I can be the guy who just hits you the right, wrong way, the right way, the wrong way. You know, like I can play a character that is precise, or I'm effective in all these different ways.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, you know, it tells us something about what we're trying to convey with Daggerheart, which is that it's about the narrative and it's about the character and it's about the cinematic nature of the game rather than the reality.
Yeah.
Rather than like, okay, well, you know, most people would be better with swords if they were strong and agile. But like, we could totally have a knowledge sword.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is something that in Daggerheart exists because that is an archetype that in story we want to see exist. And so instead of relying fully on simulation, it is really about narrative. And we try and do that in every aspect, including weapons and armor.
I also feel like that really actualizes the fun. We try to lead with fun. What is fun for people to have? And if someone is playing a knowledge-focused character and they want to have a bladed weapon, it's more fun to say yes than it is to say no.
There are campaign frames in this book. Can you rapid succession, run through what you're trying to achieve with each of these? How many are there?
There's four.
There's
4 campaign frames in the book. Do you want to talk about Castle High?
Castle High, we tapped Mikey and Cass from Slug Blaster, which was such a treat. We really wanted to capture the magical school vibe. I want that genre back in our house with the good folks of the community to be able to have their magical school, and Mikey and Cass really understood the vibe. It feels whimsical and fun and a little bit modern, and then we got to introduce that tech about making this missing party member, which is something that I've wanted to do since Candela.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect space for it.
And there's also some flight mechanics in there.
There's flight mechanics, because who doesn't love flying? Just let everybody fly.
Everybody on their brooms. We have Reign of the Weredragon, which is sort of a dark fairy tale.
Yeah.
And
that has the ability to build the villain.
That is
build your own villain.
Build your own villain.
Shout out to Alex Robertson for the Queen.
Yes.
There's so much for the Queen DNA in that.
Yeah.
Because
we quite literally call it out in the book. On that page about it being inspired by For the Queen, and that was something that was in collaboration with Jeremy and Chris.
And they really love the fairy tale genre.
At the time. Yeah.
Yeah, they had just joined us and we went campaign frame, and they pitched a bunch of options, and we got to run with this, and I really appreciate that they dove in with both feet. Yeah. And then also were very receptive when Spencer and I were like, okay, what about a villain builder?
And then Dark Heart of Andaluria, which was a bunch of people: Carlos, Cisco, Rudicki, you, and Rob.
Which we specifically, the ask on that campaign frame was we need a campaign frame that's a great home for the vampire and the werewolf and the reanimated and all of our spooky new offerings.
It was very much inspired by Spanish vineyards and basically the relationship between wine and blood, and that there's some kind of darkness coming over this once quaint place.
A very fertile land.
Very fertile land. And you're playing a band of monster hunters. So this is very
Bloodborne,
Van Helsing,
Castlevania,
Hellboy.
Harvest Horror is its own subgenre.
Yes.
I mean, I grew up on a farm, so I am cutely tied in.
Vampire Hunter D and The Witcher were also inspirations here.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that there's a flashiness to Andaluria, because, well, you'll get it. Harvest Horror, there's kind of a more I family from Kansas. I think of a kind of grounded, a little desaturated, maybe a little dusty, flat forever. And then there's a wine drinking, flashy outfit like Van Helsing. Like, I'm going to kill the monsters hotly.
Yeah.
And we give guidance for transformations in the campaign frame that helps you to like know when to give your players a vampire or a werewolf or a reanimated transformation. And so you're sort of opting into those transformations by joining this campaign frame. And that's part of the deal. And then we also give you a structure for the hunt.
Hunting a monster.
To hunt down your monsters. And then finally, we have Journey to Horizon, which is basically after like 1,000-year cataclysm, this Fellowship of Heroes embarks from this sanctuary that they've been in to journey across a broken continent and resurrect this fallen goddess.
And what was the mechanic that you wanted to introduce with Journey?
It was hex crawls. Everyone was asking
That's right.
how to do hex crawls in Daggerheart or how to do journeys in Daggerheart. And so we wanted to really explore how we could mechanize that, bringing in some of the OSR influence. There's already a little bit in Daggerheart, but this was in particular like people really wanted to do that classic journey across the continent. I mean, very much inspired by Lord of the Rings, right? But also things like Dragon Prince, and also something like Fallout, where they've been locked away for a long time. They emerge.
Yeah.
There's a new world out here that they don't know about. They're now making their way across this land, and they have a map from old Valoran, which is not accurate anymore. And so the GM has a map that they've made that shows you what the what the world is now, and the players start traveling across the map that they have and start mapping out how it's different now.
And Rob and Spencer were really grinding on this, and I had the joy of being red team on it, which meant I didn't read it. I only like touched very little. Like, they would ask me questions about what I thought or run something by me very, very distantly, and then I got to read it when it was more realized. And I'm not a hex crawler person, and so I was the gate of like, if you can get me to both understand what you're going for and be in, that's like a really great litmus test. And they all did such a wonderful job.
And we also were doing it in combination with Joe Hick and James Introcaso. So
it took a lot of humans, a lot of hours.
The four of us, they kind of took a first crack at it, and then it came to Rob and I did another pass on it. And so it was just like a combination of people just trying to make this thing work, because it's not easy to combine all of these genres together. And I think that the team nailed it. I'm really, really happy with how it came out. And there are just like pages of, this is our rumors table.
Yeah.
So like, there's 100 different things you could roll for rumors for these regions alone, and then just table after table in here. So I'm really excited about how that came along.